welcome again to the UCLA Brain Sport Podcast. Amazing guest today, former #1 high school volleyball recruit, National Rookie of the Year, and Stanford volleyball player, Hayley Hodson. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
How's it going?
Going well.
Going well? Enjoying Southern California?
Yeah, it's nice to be back.
That's awesome. So, the reason that we have you on today is because you had a pretty interesting, unfortunate, I think, story and experience with concussion as part of your sport. So I think, what I like doing is giving a little bit of context, right? So
Sure.
You came out of high school, very highly rated. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes.
#1 high school recruit.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to high school?
That's a loaded question. I went to Corona Del Mar High School in Newport Beach, California, but I actually finished high school online because I was competing with the national team. Okay. So I played 3 years of high school volleyball and then went virtual.
So you played soccer initially, is that right?
I played everything as a little kid.
Okay.
Yeah. But I started playing volleyball early in elementary school.
Okay. Yeah. So then when did you sort of know that this was a direction you were going to head in as far as volleyball?
When I made my first USA team at 12, 13.
Okay. So how does that happen? How do you get recruited into the USA team so young?
Basically, you go to tryouts. So there are these national tryouts that they have all over the place. I had no idea it existed. And so I had a coach that was like, hey, have you heard of the USA High Performance tryouts? You should go. I was like, nope. So I went. And that was really my first time feeling like, oh, I can do this. And also realizing exactly what it was that I needed to get better at to make that a reality.
Right.
I was a little Olympic nut as a kid. So
where'd that come from?
I think it was just in me, but my mom had been a sports producer, and so she actually worked both 1984 Olympics in Sarajevo and Los Angeles. They used to be in the same year. And then we went to the Salt Lake Olympics, the Winter Olympics, when I was 5. So I really wanted to be a figure skater, but, at 6'2", that ended when I hit like 5 feet tall at 8 years old.
Right.
So, that was not the path. But I really just kept playing sports looking for like which one I could go to the Olympics in. So I quit softball when they took it out of the Olympics. Okay. I was like, no point doing this anymore. Next. Like, I loved softball. It was great. I was like, I'm not going to waste my time with that. So,
my mom's always wanted me to go to the Olympics too. And obviously I'm not going to end up going, and I didn't end up going, but she was like, just figure out something that you can do to go to the Olympics. Like, be able to throw something. Maybe you can hold up a banner for the athletes. I'm like, come on, Mom. It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry.
I just really had this, like, dream of competing on that stage. So the first time I put on a USA jersey at 13 years old that had USA across my chest and my last name across my back, I was like, okay, this is real.
Right. So did you like the idea of just representing your country, or was it something a little bit deeper rooted than that?
Yeah, I really liked the idea of pursuing excellence at something and honing a craft, but also representing my country and getting to be a part of those international competitions. So I did go on to compete in a lot of international competitions, and those to date are still some of the greatest honors I've experienced. I think was just it's a very special, unique thing to represent your country.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that was always really fun.
Yeah. So then you went to high school and you showed a lot of promise, clearly, right, as a volleyball player. And then did you know you wanted to go to Stanford, like right off the bat, or?
Realistically, it was a dream school for me. I was a total nerd. I loved to study and learn. And so for me, it was where I could go play top level volleyball and get a top level education and actually be a student, and not be super limited by being an athlete. So I did, but I was heavily recruited and really looked at a lot of schools. But ultimately I did want to play big volleyball. Right. And wanted to be able to go be a nerd. And so went to Stanford.
Yeah. And just to put it in context, Stanford is a really, really good volleyball school for people that might not know, right? Yeah. Routinely ranked #1 or in the top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then you go to Stanford, dream come true, right?
Yeah.
And then
first 3 months were heaven.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Really good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got a concussion and then another giant hit to the head 14 days later.
Right.
and I was never the same again.
So up to that point, how were you doing in your volleyball career at Stanford?
Oh, I was doing great.
Right.
Yeah, was I think leading the team in kills most of the time. Was starting. Ended up being selected as an All-American after that season. So it was going great.
You're Rookie of the Year too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a time where going to college and transitioning to college level play was truly one of the easiest transitions I've ever made in my life. Like I have had many difficult like there are other things that have been much more difficult. It was just really natural, really fun. It felt like exactly where I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing. So
now, are you talking
really
about
great.
that in terms of the transition from high school volleyball to college volleyball, or just in the general sense of sort of going off to college? And
I mean, both, honestly. I spent my whole summer with the U.S. women's national team, and then the junior national team. So I didn't really volleyball, you are recruited out of club. Club is where you play in high school. But I spent my summers training and competing with various USA teams.
Which seems to be the case with a lot of women's sports, right? Like
all of them, I think.
Where club is sort of the more competitive arena to play in rather than high school.
Big time.
I know it's like that for women's soccer. We had Sophia Chambers on an episode, and she was telling us the same exact thing. Where
it's the same for men's sports too, except for football. Football is the only sport recruited out of high school.
Right. Okay.
Like there are people that basketball can be big time high school basketball, there could be big time high school golf. Like you can have a great high school team, but most people are recruited and really develop their skills outside of high school and the club system.
And then you were also playing with the professional USA women's national team as a high schooler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because as far as football is concerned, I'm really interested, not only football, but, a bunch of sports where, you have those transition periods from high school to college, and, if you're good enough from college to professionals, and, what does that transition look like? What does that make you susceptible to?
Right. Physically, especially. Yeah,
exactly.
So that for me was one of the reasons why it was kind of shocking what ended up happening to me, because they really wanted to tell me, oh, she's just, she wasn't prepared, or like her body wasn't prepared. And like, frankly, I was doing less in college and than I had been. I'd been training like 10 hours a day prior, and they cap you at a certain number every day. Right. And so physically, it was a very easy transition that I was very prepared for, if that makes sense. Like it really wasn't a transition.
Right. And that's kind of what I was alluding to as to why that transition was so easy for you, right? It's because you were playing probably better competition as a high schooler, playing with professional athletes pretty much, right? Yeah. Rather than, college athletes potentially.
Yeah, totally. Like I was lower on the roster on like national team rosters, if that makes sense. Right. So I wasn't getting as much playing time, perhaps.
Right.
But I was, training and competing at that level.
You were
like
playing
the pace
up.
of game.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
The pace of game I was used to, the physicality of game I was used to, was very much that level or higher.
And in that context, high school and then playing with those professional players, did you ever suffer anything that was concerning for a concussion? What was that like?
Yeah, I had one concussion playing for the national team.
Okay.
And I didn't realize what had happened because I'd never had a concussion before. And so I took this ball off my forehead blocking and just was like not great for the rest of the scrimmage. We were doing an inter squad scrimmage, and usually after a game I would have very much like a prolonged adrenaline high. Like it would take a while to wind down after a game. Like the idea of finishing a game and immediately being tired was not a thing.
Right.
You're just wound up. And I remember getting in the car on the way home. My parents had come to watch, so they drove me home. And I literally fell asleep in the back of the car. Like I don't sleep in vehicles in general. Like I'm just not that person. And so that was a little weird. And then the next day I was like, my vision feels kind of blurry and fuzzy. Like I don't feel great. And so I went to our Team USA trainer, and she did the whole kind of go through the concussion protocol. She was like, all right, we got to get you to a doctor. So then I went to the Team USA doctor, and they were very conservative with me. I took like a full 3 weeks off, and then started to come back on like a progression, and a couple days into that started having like severe vertigo. So then I went back to a doctor, got referred to a different doctor, and did a bunch of vestibular therapy, fixed that issue, and then returned to play. But even that first time, what I didn't know anything at the time. It didn't really, it was such a well-handled and also sort of a low-pressure time. You know, I wasn't in the middle of a competition season. Like, nobody was in a rush. And so things were just like, oh, you don't feel great today. Let's like go take care and sort that out.
Right.
And so I didn't really think much of it moving forward.
Right.
But looking back, I'm like, yeah, it was about a month and a half before I was like actually fully cleared and ready to go. So
it was a relatively, I don't want to say benign, right? But a relatively okay experience in terms of your concussion and your concussion rehabilitation, right? And getting back to your sport.
I mean, yeah. And I look back, like it did take some time, and it took some like very hands-on, therapy and therapeutic methods to get me back.
Right.
But it was a progression, and we did it, and it didn't really infringe upon anything I was doing at the time. So it didn't feel like a big deal, but it was just being handled well. You know, like if you sprain your ankle and you're not in the height of a competition season, you're like, okay, sprained my ankle.
Right.
Give it a couple weeks, like I'll be fine. And so that was kind of how that went for me mentally. But looking back, I was like, oh no, like I had all these different sort of series of symptoms. I had these delayed onset vertigo issues that we had been completely just not noticed or there before. It took sort of ramping up exercise before those started happening. And looking back now, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like that.
But I don't want to gloss over this, is that point that you made where you didn't feel anything till after the game, right? Because of all that adrenaline rushing.
Sure.
And I don't want to gloss over that, because it's important when you're trying to figure out if someone's had a concussion or not, right? Because if someone pulls you out of the game and they do an assessment, then and there when the injuries happen, right? Potentially, you're not going to have any abnormalities, or, you're not even going to realize that you've had a concussion because you don't feel anything, right? You've got that sympathetic nervous system just, going through the roof. You're in the zone, right? You have a purpose, you have a goal. So we see that a lot. And, that's big because, potentially someone that's had a concussion and they don't even realize they've had a concussion, right? Despite them being educated as to, if I've had a concussion, I'll pull myself out, right?
Right.
Or notifying someone, right?
Right.
They'll go back in there and potentially risk a secondary concussion, which, when we're talking about, long-term effects of repeated concussions, that's what we want to avoid, right? We want to avoid them happening all within sort of the same sitting, right? Or within the same week, potentially even, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you say that, because when I got my first concussion at Stanford, I was the one that pulled myself off a court. Because I was like, I'm not okay.
Right.
But that first time, I had no idea. It's I say it a lot, but I think it's a good analogy is, asking somebody that's just been hit in the head if they're okay is kind of like asking a drunk person if they can drive.
Right.
They're probably going to say yes,
yeah.
but they're not really in a position to say that and be the decider.
Right.
For a variety of reasons, including cognitive reasons, and also just the pressure of returning to a game, or feeling like you're in the zone, or feeling like you have this goal or purpose that you're working towards. And if you ask somebody, they're probably gonna be, I'm fine.
Right. But I would hate to compare that to drunk drivers, because, I look at athletes. I used to be an athlete myself, and, wanting not to come out because you're so in the zone is I think an honorable thing, right? You know what I mean?
It's a little different. You don't get yourself in the situation quite the same way, but.
So you mentioned your first concussion. What happened?
How did I get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, it's a very common thing in women's volleyball, but I just went up to block, and when you're blocking and you jump a certain height, your face is just totally over the net, and your arms are basically above your head reaching over the net, but there is space between your arms for a ball to go and hit you in the face.
Yeah.
So I've taken thousands of balls off the head in this way. But yeah, this one was a particularly square on the head one. I do remember it. And
it was in practice?
It was It was an inter-squad scrimmage on the USA team. So, like, we were in jerseys and had a crowd, but we were just playing each other.
Okay. But
yeah. So it was a game. It was a game just...
But that wasn't at Stanford, though.
No, this was my senior year of high school.
That's the one I was asking you about, was the one at Stanford.
Oh, the one at Stanford.
Yeah, how did that happen?
Different one. The one at Stanford, we were in a drill, preparing for a game, and basically off of a live hit, our middle hitters were directed to hit at defenders. I was one of the defenders being hit at, and me and one other girl, we were the focus of this drill for a specific strategic thing. But we were asked to stand on the 10-foot line, which in volleyball is, as it sounds, 10 feet away from the net. Yeah. But that is really close for a back row defender. Usually you're closer to what would be 15 feet back, and that was kind of a more normal place. But for this particular attempted strategy, our coach was like, no, you have to stand on the 10-foot line. Like, we have to be able to dig this, and you're not going to have a block, and we're going to do it off of live hitters. And the direction to the live hitters were aim for their heads or in front of the 10-foot line. Okay. Like, you're trying to hit this ball at them.
So they were jumping, they were coming off the court, they were jumping, right? They weren't like on
No, they were not static. Like, they were jumping and hitting off a set.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was very much a live hit with no block, and we were much closer, and like, it was target practice.
Right.
Regardless of what sport, or your familiarity with volleyball, the best way I can describe it is it was live target practice.
Right.
And so that's how that was going. It was one of those drills, like, it was meant to be extremely difficult. You know, it's like, that's a very hard ball to dig under any circumstances, but especially the ones without a block and like on a rapid fire situation where you have very minimal time to reset and track a ball and do all of that. And so, yeah, to me, it happened in slow motion. I saw the ball's trajectory that was going not in front of me, but very much directly at my head. We were being coached and yelled at to like keep our hands down, because you have more control as a volleyball player to dig with your arms, your forearms, rather than, your hands. Right. So yeah, in this slow motion moment, I saw this ball coming at my head, me knowing I couldn't get my hands up in time, not being able to move, the whole thing. This happens in a split second, but
it's in slow-mo, still
happened in slow motion. Yeah. And I turned and took it off the right side of my head.
Okay.
And I immediately was just like, that's not great. Can't really see out of my right eye that well. Yeah. And
now this isn't the courage drill, right?
It is the courage drill.
It is the courage drill, because I watched videos of the courage drill in preparation for this episode, and someone's on an elevated platform and just like spiking balls down at you, and like you're a sitting target basically.
Yeah. So it's still not a great, it's called the courage drill.
Right.
But that is a controlled version of the courage drill. So perhaps what I was doing was the insanity drill. I'm not sure.
Right.
To date, it is the only time I have ever done the courage drill under any circumstances. Okay. Never before, never after.
You didn't do it with the USA?
Absolutely not. We never did anything that wasn't a game replication.
Now that you're sort of a few years out, looking back on it and maybe speaking to coaches and other people in the volleyball community, what's the general sense of this drill?
There are two schools of thought, and they're like, every sport has its sort of coaching schools. There was sort of an old school way and then a more new school way. That is what our current USA pipeline uses since about 2008 has been that sort of model. So I was very much trained in that model. That tends to be very anti-drills, and very much, if you're doing a drill, it's going to be as game-like as possible. So as basically not like only trying to replicate what is happening in a game and the various situations that happen in a game. Right. So very rarely would you ever see anybody hitting something off a box. It's not realistic. You're not working your eyes the same way, stuff like that. But also, if there's a hit, there's a block. If you're hitting, there are going to be blocks in front of you, that kind of thing. Like, all of those things play into that. So today it is the only time I've done that drill. And it was one that my own coach, who had taught it in a video that does exist, be like, I'm not sure I would ever do this drill. It's not that safe. Like, it's a notorious drill that I was nervous when he described this drill. I was immediately nervous.
Okay.
I was like, this sounds terrifying.
Right.
Like,
do you know other girls that have taken balls to the head on this drill?
I mean, it's not that common of a drill, so I don't know. I've definitely people don't realize that volleyball players get hit in the head like all the time.
Right.
And I think that some of that is inevitable, but I do think that there's a lot of it that can be, especially outside of a game situation, that can be minimized or prevented entirely.
So that's kind of what I'm alluding to, right? It's so and I think this is the case with volleyball as well, but especially for women, most concussions are occurring in practice.
Yeah.
Right. So realizing that gives us a potential target, right? Because it's difficult to do it during the game to minimize, because you got to change rules and everything like that, right? Totally. And that's a little bit complicated, right? But if we realize that practice is when these concussions are occurring, what are the drills that are causing concussions to occur potentially, right? So that's kind of what I'm alluding to here, right? I know in soccer, right? We've, especially in youth soccer, we've minimized heading drills.
Yeah.
Right. So, potentially this is, a drill that maybe we could do less of.
Yeah. I mean, if it feels like target practice, I would say don't do it.
Right. If it's called the courage drill.
If it's called the courage drill, I would say there's no need to be courageous here. Let's be safe.
Right. Yeah.
So, I look forward to the day where the norm in sports is actually prioritizing safety over toughness or something, because I think it's actually very tough to be able to say, hey, I'm going to take care of myself and invest in my long-term health and well-being and safety. And that sends a great message to future generations too. Like, let's pass that forward rather than a punitive way of, making people feel small for not being, willing to endure crazy amounts of unnecessary pain or something.
But it's such a dichotomy, right? Because to get to that level, right? That elite level of being an athlete, you kind of have to have that mindset.
I mean, yeah, you have to be able to some degree, but I was really conscientious about protecting my health and especially my shoulders. And I was very, very meticulous about making sure that I was being trained in a way that would prevent injury and protect my longevity as an athlete. So from an early age, like when I first started weightlifting, like I was there for mechanical soundness, not just like, let's get as many inches on my jump as humanly possible. Yeah. And so, I think I was really surrounded by a culture of like, we're going to get there, but we're going to do it right. And I think it's completely possible. It just requires people to prioritize that. And so, obviously if somebody is always like, oh, I can't do it, they're just not going to get there, and that's at the end of the day, like that's going to be on them if they're just unwilling to push through any sort of difficulty. Right. But you shouldn't be pushing through pain. Right. Absolutely. You can push through challenge and adversity and soreness, your muscles can get sore, but if something feels wrong, like I think we need to do a better job of listening to that. And also, have whatever it is, having more people on teams, if it means that we almost have pitch counts for people, it's like you can only play so many games a season. I don't know. Could be controversial, might get us somewhere. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I in baseball, I always had a coach that told me, are you sore or are you injured? What's your pain? And it's, I that stuck with me because I don't know the difference, man. Like at least as a high school athlete, right?
Right.
I don't know the difference. I just know that my arm's hurting me when I throw. What does that mean to me? Again, it's not like well, this is injury and this is soreness and this is how you delineate both of them. It's just, are you sore or are you injured? Right. And I think that question had a little undertone to it, right? Where it was like, just push through it.
Yeah, he asked a question, but the answer was, I'm sore.
Right, exactly, exactly.
That was the only answer you were allowed to give. Yeah. And that's, I think you plan on getting there, but that was exactly the sort of situation I was in when I got my second hit to the head at the UCLA game.
So what happened after your first one? What were some symptoms you had after your first one?
Oh, gosh. It's all, like, this particular 2 weeks of my life is extremely fuzzy. I look totally back and I'm like, gosh, I don't even fully remember. My immediate concern was that I thought I had I thought there was a chance I had torn my retina. Because I was having like major visual disturbances, and I had known people that this had happened to them in sports, and you have like 48 hours to fix that or else you can't see. So that was my like most pressing thought was, am I going to go blind? So I did go to the ER and had a eye exam, did not have a torn retina, thankfully. But then they kind of went through the concussion protocol after that, and at that point, we as in the athletic training staff realized that I didn't have a baseline exam, concussion exam, which I think there's some debate about the usefulness of those in general. But if that is going to be your diagnostic tool, it's kind of imperative that you have a baseline.
Sure.
Especially with athletes that tend to be pretty fine-tuned in a lot of their motor, visual, physical, even some of their cognitive skills. So, yeah, I just remember I definitely had a headache. Visual disturbances were a real thing. I was pretty out of it. Didn't lose consciousness, but had balance issues, that sort of thing. But they basically told me you have a mild concussion. It'll take a couple days. Being a starter on the team, I knew we had a big game coming up. I knew I wasn't going to be able to play in that game.
This is midway through your first season?
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew my coach, when the athletic trainer was like, okay, she has a concussion, like I saw this look in my coach's face of like, well, this is inconvenient for me.
Right.
Not are you okay, but this is going to be a huge inconvenience for me.
Sure.
And so
how'd that make you feel?
Terrible, like frustrated, like trust was broken in that moment, and for me too, it was like, I think from that moment on, it was like, okay, how can I not let my team down? How can I not let my team down? I wanted to really be there for them and play. But in that moment, I also knew, like, I know exactly where my coach stands on this. He wants me back as soon as possible, no matter the cost.
Yeah. So. Now, were you wary of, I'm not going back until my symptoms are resolved. I'm not going back till I feel 100%, or?
I was trusting the doctors.
Yeah.
I was told to trust them, and I said, okay. I didn't really have a choice either. Or at least I didn't know what my options were if I did have a choice. So also, I firmly believe I was not in a great state of mind for decision-making capacity, and I really didn't have a good sense of like how far I was from my baseline, if that makes sense. Like, you're kind of in it and you're kind of swimming around through the fog, and you're like, right, I think I'm feeling a little better. You're just like, you're trying to be better.
Yeah.
But you don't have a clear sense of how, like, it's very hard to measure when you're in a certain state of being, what not being in that state of being is like. And so you very much lose a sense of, you don't have a good anchor.
Right. And that's big, right? Because these concussion symptoms are very non-specific. Like you said, am I having visual symptoms for my concussion, or is my retina detached? Right? Like,
true.
That's a great example, right? And that also probably a big reason why you don't necessarily know, am I 100%? Am I 95%? Am I 90%? Am I not good? Am I good to go back? It's really difficult, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've had plenty of other aches and pains, and it's a lot easier when they ask you on a scale of 1 to 10 how badly your ankle hurts.
Right.
Like, my brain that's making that cognitive evaluation and decision is up here, and my ankle is down there. Like, I'm able to distinguish the level of pain that my ankle is feeling.
Sure.
When it is your brain that is the one that is injured, it is really hard to distinguish your level of pain because you're just in it.
Right.
And it's multi-symptomatic, it's not just
multifactorial too, might
I add. Yeah. It's not, it's not just pain and swelling.
Right.
It's a whole bunch of things that also aren't easy to see. Well, you can't see them, most of them. So, there's that.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really hard, but they still always are asking you, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel today? And you're like, this is just guesswork. This is guesswork.
Right.
It's total guesswork,
Right.
you know?
And then that's the big thing where, there's a lot of talk in terms of are athletes good to go back to play when their symptom severity score is 0, right? If they're still having a headache, right, at 2 weeks out, at 2 months out, right? Are they good? Do we wait till the score is 0, right? Or do we wait till the score is clearly, going down significantly, right?
Right.
And their trajectory is just getting better, right? I think that's I don't, at the Brain Sport program, we tend to say, if we see a good trajectory, let's start doing exercise. I've mentioned it before. Subthreshold aerobic exercise is the one intervention that's shown to improve concussion trajectory and prevent persistent post-concussion symptoms, right? So I think it's tough to say, and it's still up for debate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all I know is they put me on a plane 48 hours later, and I was running on a treadmill on day 3.
Okay.
Which I was told they were going to put me through, that they believed in a very aggressive return to play. And I was like, okay, I guess I go along with that.
Yeah.
It was just, I think back and I was just not great. But I really didn't know what was happening. Right. So I was like, yeah, sure. I'm at a 7 today.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So
then 2 weeks later, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, you're back to full play. Right?
Yeah.
When you have your second concussion, you're in the game, right? It's happening in the game.
I'm back to full play. I didn't feel like I was playing very well. Definitely felt off. And that, I don't think from the outside it really looked like I was that off, but it didn't feel sharp.
Right.
I also had started to have some shin splints. That's a pretty normal thing in volleyball. I'd had them before. Right. Those were bothering me just a little when I got the first concussion.
Mm-hmm.
And those were just rapidly getting worse.
Right.
I was in a lot of pain in a way that I had not experienced before. I dealt with shin splints before. I usually knew how to sort of at least minimize, keep things at bay, get to the end of a season, and then sort of take care of them.
So let's, instead of having you describe your second concussion, we have a video here where we can actually see it happen. So this is 2 weeks after your first concussion during practice, and now you're back to play. You're in the game.
Yeah.
Goes away from Felix and just pops the ball to Namo. Wow.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look, from a sideline physician, sports neurologist point of view,
she definitely had to feel that one. She turns to look, and she knows that ball is.
That's a hard hit. This is the next play. That's a good spike. That was you, right?
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
I don't remember this.
You don't remember this?
Yeah. I remember.
That's good.
I didn't. I remember getting hit. I remember this ball flying. I remember feeling like I had no choice but to play. I looked over at my coach. It just didn't seem like there was any way out for me. They had been so from day one of the first concussion. It was like, when can we get you back on the court? We need you, sort of thing.
Right.
We lost the big game that we had been preparing for with the courage drill, which cost us the Pac-12 title. So that was gone. We were trying to stay afloat basically and get a decent seed. So we were in that second half of the season where it was we have to win.
Right.
We're now in a position where we have to win. We were in a good position before, and now we have to win.
Right.
So yeah.
So after this, that happens, right? And then you begin to have symptoms again after the game, or?
Yeah, I literally I don't know if anybody talked to me after about it. I don't remember that at all. I just was increasingly not myself, and that's sort of the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
And my shin splints continued to get much worse. And by the end of the season, which was just a week and a half later, I was just in severe pain, not playing well, was irritable. I now have a vocabulary to describe it that I did not have at the time.
Right.
But I kept going, and like I couldn't be alone. Like
Right.
I was really like on edge. Like I could
Anxious?
not.
You were anxious?
I was anxious. Like I had to go be with people,
Right.
which is like I'm a social introvert. So I need my alone time, you know?
Right.
It was really weird. Like I couldn't do it. I couldn't focus. It was the hardest final season I've ever had. Like
Were you having headaches too?
I can't remember if headaches had lingered or started. I started having migraines, which I didn't know were migraines because I'd never had one, at some point, like a couple months out, I think.
Did you find yourself avoiding certain activities? Like activities that you felt were would sort of bring on these symptoms and different things like that?
No, because in my mind, I didn't know anything was wrong.
Right.
So I just kept pushing through everything and trying to do things like I usually did them,
Right.
if that makes sense.
But that would bring on symptoms then, right?
Yeah, I didn't feel great. Like I wasn't functioning great. But I kept thinking that there was like a reason for that and did not connect the dots.
Right. Why weren't you functioning great? What was it?
I had no idea. Like I really had no idea.
Like
And
cognitively, like your processing was
cognitively,
off?
yeah. Final season was it was hard for me to focus. I wasn't retaining information the way I usually did. And I had no idea why. Did not connect these dots for actually 18 months. But from that point on, just was increasingly irritable. My mom was like, there's something going on. Like, are you okay?
Right.
You know, has something happened? Like things that like a parent would notice because I went home for Christmas break, you know, not that long after. And just was like, no, like we lost early in the season. Like, I think that's why I'm just a little down. I'd never been down about a loss in my life. Like I cared, but I was like, if you don't win, you didn't win. Like all you can do is get better and learn from it and do the next time. Like I had a really healthy mental state that I had really worked on too. Like as an athlete, like I did mindfulness training, you know, I was really cognizant of those things. I was very much bought into the growth mindset. Like things didn't get under my skin. So it was weird. And I was like, I guess this is just hitting different. And really just not being able to articulate anything and not having any sort of framework of how to even diagnose or analyze what I was going through at all.
Right.